Hello and welcome to Team Righteous Gaming. This is our channel, and today we're going to be talking about the tier list of what we think the new Flesh and Blood meta is going to be over to Nationals. So before we get into all of the different heroes and controversies, first I'd like to say my name is Jeremiah. I'm from South Florida. The hero I'm playing this season is Ira, and I've been playing Flesh and Blood since the Everfest, so probably about 3.5 years. Zach, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, you might recognize me. I've actually been on the channel unlike the rest of these three. I'm Zach. I'm from North Carolina. Member of the Fang Gang for this coming season. Been playing for a couple years. I'm the one who day 2'd Memphis on Fang, so hopefully I can give some insight there that other people might not have. But throw it over to Hunter next, I guess.
Hi guys, I'm Hunter. I play mostly Warrior. This season I'll probably be on Warrior Assassin. That Fang deck was my deck, but I didn't get to go to Memphis because I'm Canadian.
Stolen Glory, let's go!
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Over to Andrew.
All right, I'm Andrew. I've been playing Fab since Ario released. This season I think I'm gonna be on Zen, but we'll see how long that lasts. And then after that, I'll just be in the chaotic spiral of oh, maybe KO's still good. I don't know. We'll figure it out.
It's not.
Yeah, I know, but I can cope, right?
No.
Keep clutching those pearls,
No,
buddy.
you can't. I'm not letting
Keep
you.
hanging on to them. Well, you might be in luck because after the first couple of weeks of this RTN season, we might see Zen leave, we might see some other heroes leave, but maybe you'll get lucky and sticks around. So today our tier list is going to be focusing strictly on power. Who is the best and well positioned in the overall meta? These will be our best guesses as to that. We're not gonna account for any living legend status. We're not going to account for. We do understand that both this and Zen have a very high chance of leaving. But we will mostly just be discussing what it'll look like before then. So let's go ahead and kick it off with Mario.
All right, sure. I'm just gonna throw him an A for now, unless anyone has any disagreements, and we can get more into specifics if we want.
That's totally fair.
I agree, that's fair. I think that Mario is going to be one of those heroes that you're going to sit down across from at an event, and he's either going to be really bad or really good, strictly based off of who's piloting him. Because he's a very challenging deck to pilot. The lines aren't incredibly clear, and it can be difficult to have a correct deck list with him.
I think this is a great week 4 deck. I think once we see kind of the meta shake out, people get used to what the builds are going to be. They kind of decide whether they're going from the red line builds, more blues. I definitely see he has power now, but I think it's just going to take some getting used to. And the lines, I know Zach's played this a little bit, so has Hunter. They are not clear at all.
No.
Yeah.
No, this deck is like really hard.
I think every day you play this deck, you're going to get better. So in that sense, week 4 deck makes sense, but I don't think it's bad week 1. And even if this is a week 1 tier list, I think he's A. I think his power scales based on both players' knowledge. It'll probably be a little bit of leapfrog, where the Arachne players get really good at Arachne, and he's going to have a period of dominance, and then people are going to learn to play against him. And he'll fall back down to around A. With Viserai and Zen still in the meta, you still have really, really powerful stuff going around, so I don't think he breaks into S tier yet.
Yeah, for what it's worth, I think that like once Viserai rotates, he gains a lot more stock, but until then I think New is probably the assassin you should be on. That's basically my take, is that he's probably a better assassin into the wider field, but because Viserai is so much of the field, I think he has like much worse matchup there. So
Zach saying an MST hero is good, that's super controversial.
I
bro.
know, right? Crazy.
You need to back down a little bit.
Do you think his aggro matchup is enough to consider him over New later? Just like he seems to have a better ability to race aggro decks than any of the other assassins.
This deck does so much more damage than the other assassins. Like, maybe Slippy competes with him in terms of, like, just damage output, but, like, if you want an assassin that can race things, Arachne can race things. Like, you see it from my stream game from this weekend, the Arachne's just, like, threatening, like, 15 on turn 1 with no so it's like his first turn of the game's taking my head off. Like, this deck can throw hands.
Yeah, but, like, that's just, well, in that case, it was a bit high roll. But Arachne, like, you don't need to race most aggro decks.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
sure,
You don't have
Arachne can do it way better than Nu, but it's really like Arachne gains points into combo and loses points into control. If we're using those more archaic definitions for fab decks, like, obviously you're going to be less good into uh, Guardians, and you're going to be less good into things like Max, I guess. Maybe less good into Dio. I don't know. I don't know what Dios look like right now. But I don't know. That's pretty much it. You trade that
Oh,
for
makes sense.
better combo
And
shenanigans.
I think we're going to hear a lot of that today, where it's just there's so many different heroes to pick from in each class that they each have their own strengths and weaknesses into whichever meta that you need to go into. And so, like, with that, we can move on to Slippy, right? Where this is just simply another assassin type, right? Who is really good in specific metas. And I think he's like a pick. So I'd probably put him probably in the highest of B tier, low B tier in this current meta.
I would give him more benefit of the doubt than like bottom of B. I think he's like pretty squarely in B. He's definitely not weak. I just don't really know yet the meta in which you would play him over Mario. Like from playing both, it felt like Mario was better into most things to me at least. Slippy's really fun though. I'll give him that. He's like way more fun, but I don't think he's as good. Or if he is, like I don't think he's anywhere near as close to being solved. Not that Mario is close, but I think a lot more people are working on Mario, so it's going to be a lot faster getting to a competent level on that than it is with Slippy. So, it's probably going to take more time.
He kind of feels like Assassin at home a little bit, right? Because he's just like, hey, this is all of your lines are super straightforward. It's not that crazy. It's just, hey, you play with an on hit with go again, and then you move on to the next thing.
Yeah, I mean, the lines when you draw your hand are pretty straightforward, but I will say, like, Slippy has, like, the Rune Blade problem, at least right now. And that's a ratio thing. That's why, like, I think more time goes by, you'll figure out how many reactions you need, how many stealth cards you need, how many, like, actual good cards that are just generic that you can get away with running. But, like, as of right now, he really feels like he can brick and lose the game on the spot from bricking a decent amount of the time. And because of that, I don't think I can really put him higher until people figure him out more.
There's also the assassin mirror problem.
Yes, also true. He does just give your opponent stealth cards go again, which is really annoying into new.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll put him in B. Still a bit of an unknown quantity, but seems objectively worse than Mario.
No reason to pick him over Mario right now, in my opinion.
Huntsman is not relevant. He's better.
Agreed.
That's like not relevant here is just. It's not saying the deck's bad. It's not saying the deck's unplayable. It's just. It's in here
Why would you pick him?
because we don't play it. We don't know anyone who plays it to like a high
The
enough
only
degree.
the only person I know who plays it is Will. And what Will told me was basically like you can take an ideal Arachne Huntsman list and put it in any other assassin and it is immediately better. And it's just like, okay, well, it's probably fine at a baseline assassin is a strong class, but like why would you play this one?
And why would you play one Arachne when you could play 7?
True.
Moving on.
I will say, if you see an Arachne at your RTNs, you should probably still respect that matchup. Like they're gonna have been playing that for a while, and they are gonna know what's going on.
Just
Yep.
remember, if you're playing against Arachne and it feels like you're drawing bad, it's because he's making you draw bad. That's the one thing that's funny whenever I watch people play against Arachne, and they're like, man, I haven't drawn any of my good cards this game. It's like, yeah, I know. That's why. So just be aware that like your second cycle is probably going to be better than your first, but if you can get there, you're fine. Like, I don't know.
Nick.
Aurora.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that 8. Oh. I don't know entirely yet. What do you guys think?
I guess it's totally fair.
It's
She is a
definitely above
good aggro
Slippy
deck.
and definitely below Marionette.
Like,
Agree
she's
with
super
that.
resistant to heavy damage, but at the same time, I wonder if she loses some stock with the new ninja buffs, right? Like the ability, because for her, it's oh, I'm secretly gonna gain the draw card, whereas with a hero like Syndra or Ira, there's no secret.
I mean, I would argue Aurora's draws are way more annoying to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Syndra, it's very face up how she's going to get the draws. You need to block in a correct way, and you're fine. At least in my opinion. Same with Ira. It's like if your deck has defensive tools, you can deny the draw pretty consistently if you know when to block. But Aurora is just like, I'm going to cheese you. I'm going to have a Lightning Valley out there, and you better hope to God I don't draw the D-React. Otherwise, you're just getting clowned, you know? And if she does that, she wins. And if she doesn't do that, she's a little bit slower. So I think A is totally fair. She's like a completely competent aggro deck.
And with more redline decks, I mean, Sigil just gets better and better. You're not gonna.
Yeah, I mean,
pick
you're
one of your
never
red cards.
pitching to it in half of these decks. You just can't.
Yeah, I think Aurora's relevant with regards to Syndra. Like, I think they're. I know it's silly to say this given the context that we have like 4 good aggro decks, but there's a limit to how good your aggro deck can be before it just starts losing to other aggro decks. And I think Aurora is the worst of the aggro decks in the aggro mirror right now. Not because she's awful in it, but because she is reliant on drawing a 2-card combo, Sigil plus Channel Lightning Valley, to win the game. It's not to say that she absolutely can't win the game without that, but that's a big part of her game into decks that don't run AB. So first of all, it's hard to say whether she's lower than Syndra or higher than Syndra. So let's touch on Syndra quickly here.
Yeah.
I think Syndra is a very powerful deck that will get hated out by the meta.
I agree. I think that like she was a very good like day one deck. It was unexpected. People didn't know how to play against it. You got a lot of draws you probably shouldn't have. A bit high rolly, and then you saw it struggle a lot more on day 2, or not day 2, but like in the Battle Harden when they like tried to run it back. Didn't work as well. I think it's a very hateable deck, and I think that Ira is kind of doing what it's doing in a fundamentally better way, at least in my opinion. But I still think the deck is fundamentally strong. It's still doing some unfair things with like Mask Flick, draw shenanigans. I just don't think it's like as good as other aggro options.
I was gonna say, I feel like she and Aurora are exactly in the same place. I feel like pilot skill, you don't need as many reps coming in with either one of those decks to just kind of throw 0 for 4s on the table, throw draw cards on the table. I think they play really well into each other. Like, I feel like that's a very coin flippy matchup. I don't think either's a bad choice. I think they're both inherently powerful, and I think it'll reward people that don't have as many or as much time to get the reps in with the harder decks. So honestly, I think top of A is good for both of them. I know power level Mario's good, but I just think they're fundamentally simpler decks, which would give a lot of power to players picking them up for RTN season.
So you're saying that you think Mario should be lower?
I do, for now. I think once he's figured out, that'll change, but
At least two aggro decks that are just strictly better than Syndra and Aurora, and also have game in the aggro mirror. I would not, at least since this is a week 1 list, I would not want to run either of these heroes over my other options, unless it's just because it's something I want to
Do we want to just address the elephant in the room? Both of these are just bad and like worse Viscerai. Like it's like once Viscerai goes, play these, sure, but like I don't see why we would put them higher when we just put Viscerai in S. Like just put them up there. Like
we'll get to those.
If you want to play an aggro deck and you have the cards for it, I think you should play Viscerai.
let's just go ahead and talk about him, Jeremiah. Like,
no, that's what we're doing. Yeah, we're just talking about them now.
Viscerai and Zen are really simple, right?
Hello.
Like we don't have to talk about them a lot. They're just very good decks. People know why they're good. They output a lot of damage. Zen can block like a lot. And yeah, it's not much to say. There's like you can make a debate for which one's better. I think Viscerai is fundamentally more powerful.
I think Viscerai is definitely better.
If your deck cannot beat Viscerai or Zen, it's a good question that you should whether or not you should bring your deck. Simple.
Yeah, I think that like Zen, you can get a little bit more into the weeds. I think that he actually lost a decent amount of stock with the new set. I think Flexors hurt him a lot, but I still think that he's doing the aggro thing better than the other options for the most part, outside of Viserai and maybe Ira. He still deserves to be like top of AS. I think Viserai though is like far and away the best thing you can be doing personally.
Is Viserai better than Syndra in the aggro mirror? If Syndra gets to just play 5 reds a turn?
I think he is. Or I think he has the tools to disrupt her anyway. Like you have Succumb and like a bunch of other things. She can never AB you. You're like just doing a foot race, and I think you're doing it better. But I don't know. I haven't played enough Syndra to really say. This is me speaking from a little bit of a place of ignorance, but for the most part, I think that Viserai is probably just faster. Like I would struggle to think of a way that he isn't.
My rationale for Arachne, he is a stabilizing force in this meta. I think Aurora's worse because she's just the worst of all 3 of these in the aggro mirror because she requires more RNG than Viserai.
I agree with that.
Viserai can lose to any of these decks, but is, I feel, favored. Like, just has to draw a Mordred Tide. Hypothetically, I feel like Syndra should be favored in all the aggro mirrors, but should lose to everything else. And Arachne is one of those everything else's that are preying on things like Syndra that are not very robust, I think. I might be wrong, but I'm under the impression that Syndra is not a very robust deck or resilient to disruption.
So speaking of disruption, where do we think Azalea lands in all this?
She should be good, but she absolutely never is.
Yeah, I mean it's every season, right? Every season, people are like, Azalea's really good into the aggro heroes. Azalea's gonna break out this season, and then she gets like 100 points and wins like a couple things, and never wins anything big, and she's just sitting in B tier.
Yep.
She has Runeblade hands as a ranger.
She's not a bad hero, and she never will be for the rest of her lifespan. Her deck is fundamentally strong. It's just like susceptible to fatigue, and also you can brick, so just not consistent enough. I don't think they can print anything more for her, or she's too consistent, and then she LLs tomorrow, right? So I don't know. She's fine. If you're a good Azalea player, play Azalea.
Yeah, I think you could snipe your RTN if you have the right meta there, but like every single round you and more challenging, especially when there are warriors running around. Yeah. So I do agree with her being in B tier. So, but it is very dependent.
Like if your meta is a lot of Viserai and Syndra, like these actually interactive, like decks that you can interact with Azalea easily, then I think it's fine. But like Zen and Aurora are way more resilient to her disruption.
So like I played a game last night on Ira, and I think you could kind of bring in Ira a little bit here, and we'll just kind of talk about both Azalea and Ira right now. She's above Bolton there. So last night, so something I like about Ira is that she has the best of aggro world and the best of control world, or like mid-rangey play. And I was like, I'm not going to spend any time like messing up. And so he was able to hit me with a dominated 16 power arrow on one turn. And I took the blocks that I needed to do, did my recovery process, was able to come back with, and then from there, like I just knew that I could die at any point in time. Stopping the Azalea was a very useful tool that Ira has that I don't think that other aggro heroes necessarily.
Yeah, I think that like Ira's strength is that she is the easiest to play, or she's the best at playing 2-card hands out of any of the aggro decks. Like you can very easily just like Kadachi 2 for 6 and just be like, I'm playing mid range, and then all of a sudden I have a 14 damage turn, or 24 damage turn.
Yeah,
because I'm just drawing a bunch of cards, I'm flicking my knives, I have this gross nonsense going on. Like I don't know. I don't know why personally you would play Syndra when Ira is an option. It is my take, and maybe I'll be proven wrong. I'm willing to be proven wrong, but that's
Syndra's
my stance on it.
a lot faster than Ira.
I don't even know if I agree with that.
She is. She'll like Ira's like if you're playing into someone who's blocking you, it's like a turn 6, turn 7 kill, right?
Yeah.
Syndra's gonna turn 5 them if they're not able to block with 2 cards a turn. Yeah, no, I think Syndra, once people like target her, is in trouble. But the question is whether or not people are going to target her week 1.
My locals, I think so.
I think that like her winning has put a lot of like targets on her back for people. Yes. And I don't even know if they're necessarily deserved. Like I don't know. I guess I'll be the hot take guy and just be like, I really don't think this deck is all that. But I'll be proven wrong, I guess. If she is, I'll take one for the team and be like, yeah, I don't believe in it. Full disclosure. But I'm not saying it's
I will
bad.
go.
I just don't think it's like what people are making it out to be.
I will go the opposite direction. I think this is way better than we're making it out to be at this point.
I
And
think
I'll
it's
just go on
really
record
good.
and say that.
Like,
Yeah, like I had a completely bricked turn and I lost to my opponent and they had 5 life. And that's going first and having a brick turn. So as Ira. So like I don't know. I mean it could be like I think Andrew makes a good point that we might not be credit, maybe we're not giving her enough, but I think that's where the balance comes in and we can just keep her here in the A tier, right?
yeah, all of these
no,
heroes
I-
are in A. It's just where they fall, and we can focus on that again later on. Let's
I
move
had
on
one
for
last
now.
point about Ira, actually.
Okay,
If that's
go.
okay.
Yeah.
I just think those brick hands. I'm not in love with this deck as much. I mean, I haven't been piloting it as much, but I think Cinder's doing things a lot more consistently, and Ira just has those hands where you draw 4 or 3 blue rushing rivers, and you can't do anything but block, and your opponent's still throwing more damage than you're able to block. Or just like blue pickup sticks. Like you have a lot of great cards, but if you see them in the wrong order, this deck does nothing.
I agree.
Uh,
Like she gets resilience, but Syndra gets consistency.
yeah.
Moving on, I put both Guardians and not relevant unless someone
How
knows something
dare
I
you.
don't. Like we'll talk about Victor when we get there. He's relevant, but these guys definitely not.
I don't see
Carry
why
on.
you would play either of them over the other two.
Okay.
So
Dash.
I had an interesting thought about Dash today, and I agree with her going here. But that new Mechanologist card that is the blue non-block that you put it in and says and you just say your opponent can't play a certain card for 3 whole turns has some relevance and maybe not in her, but I think it's possible we could see a couple of like, of our European friends show up and do some really crazy shenanigans.
It would
Get
be
her down
really
party over
funny
there.
to be playing against a Zen and just start the game with that in the board and just say
Oh
G.
my gosh.
Just be like,
So funny.
I don't think that's good to be
No.
like. I don't even know if that's better than starting with a pounder in play, to be honest. But like, it's
Not.
funny. I don't know.
It's
So
definitely
funny.
not. But I do
Yeah.
think for that reason, like her and Dio are.
Yeah,
Like,
they have like a
relevant
lot of
until
like
Zen
unique
leaves.
ways to interact with the format, and I think that like especially mech specialists, you totally fine to bring back. Like it's not weak.
I think.
Yeah, you
I
could show
just
up with
think that
Dio and
it's
be good.
very hard to pilot right now
Yeah.
after losing High Octane.
I might, if we're considering specialists, do we think that the specialists on Dio are better than specialists on Azalea?
Maybe,
like,
but like
even
Azalea's still
like
a
I
better
I think they're
deck.
just so much worse positioned that like the skill doesn't really factor in for me. Like when I look at like the matchup spreads of Dio versus the matchup spreads of Azalea, I'm like Azalea seems like she's having such an easier time.
I'm not rating based on specialists either. I'm rating based on like what you expect the play level of the
Yeah.
player playing the deck is going to be. And the people playing Dio will probably either be terrible, in which case we take them out of the sample size, or very good at Dio, so she's better than. Well, she's good. You get a reasonable amount of that skill ceiling in play. There's a lot of people playing Azalea of a lot of different skill levels, and even if you cut out the bottom incompetent level, she's still where she is.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think
Yeah,
Dio
it's reasonable.
bottomish should be Dash somewhere in C, lower middle.
Man, I still, it's possible you could put her in that not relevant tier. I think that's possible.
I'm happy
It's
with
still
C though.
possible.
I think that she's
She's
at the
good,
very
though.
least stronger than everything below her.
I'm just gonna laugh when we get to the end of our TN season and she didn't even get a single point.
I think she'll get at least 3.
And Dash,
Yeah.
like base Dash, she might not get any points, but I don't think that means she's not relevant. I just don't think
Yeah.
she's gonna win events. I don't think she's the sort of deck that can reasonably win events.
She's in the Briar Purgatory, where she just wins one event per season for the next like 12 seasons, and everyone's like, "This is the time," and it's never the time.
Like, there's lots
They're gonna-
of good decks that you can
Yeah.
play, but like you shouldn't expect to win, but you can definitely top 8. Like I can see
Yeah.
Dash IE top 8ing like I don't know, like 3%, 5% of events. Once you have those numbers and the fact that she's not a deck that's good into everything, and she's also not a deck that's only good into certain things. If she wins, it'll probably be because of like a 12 or lower person event.
She'll win something in Australia. She always does.
Yeah.
Dory.
Well, before we move on, any thoughts on the mechs, Andrew?
Not really. I don't have enough
familiar,
experience with these decks to know where they're placed, and I think any good mech pilot scares me a little bit for any matchup. I would never underestimate them. I don't expect to see a whole lot of these around, though.
Yeah. Speaking of underestimating, I'm definitely going to underestimate every Dory I play this weekend.
I don't think Dory is very good. I think
I don't either.
I think if you don't know how to play against Dory, Dory will probably win. But if we're assuming knowledge on both players' side, like if we're assuming both players are equally knowledgeable about the decks they're playing, which isn't always a fair assessment. In fact, it rarely is, but we have to use some sort of heuristic. Then Dory is high C, low B. There's definitely matchups she can win. And I am referring to Dawnblade, because if you're doing dual wield, then there's better dual wield to be doing. You should be on Fang, or you should be on Kasai, I think. There might be something with Centauri Quicksilver Dagger in Dory. I haven't got around to testing it yet. But even if that does exist, I don't think it's better than low B tier.
I'm just gonna laugh so hard if that's what ends up winning PTL or PT London or something, is just some math warrior that nobody was testing.
Well,
I
you
mean,
could do
like,
Math Warrior. It's just this is not a good Math Warrior right now.
I mean, the worst
London
kept
is
secret in like the Fab community right now is like the Spellbane Aegis Jubiel Dory thing, right? Where it's playing CYB. Like everyone was like, this is the Math Warrior that beats Viscerai, and then it like maybe does, but it also loses to everything else.
It's not good. It's
like,
if your opponent knows how to play their deck, you will not win playing Jubiel Math. Dory? Is that math?
Like, yeah, it's like math like CYB, and there's like, here's my.
But CYB isn't good math.
You know?
That's the problem. It's 2 for 5. Even if you play all of them, it's 2 for 5. It's not good math. CYB is not good because of math. It is math is its enemy. Yeah, no, Dory's she's fine. I think if you're playing, like, if you're not in a competitive area and you know how to play Dawnblade, then you can show up and win events on Dawnblade for sure. Like, there's no doubt there. The only problem is if you're in a small non-competitive area and you play Dawnblade, chances are your opponents are used to playing against you playing Dawnblade. It's a fun deck, but I don't think it's particularly well positioned, because for the first time in its existence, you don't win every aggro matchup for free. In fact, I think you might lose all of them except for Syndra.
And Put Into Context is a card that was printed this set.
No one's putting it in their deck.
No one else was printed in this set. Trot along.
Yeah, yes. Dory got like Dawnblade. Dory got Provoke. She got Trot along. Like, it's definitely 2 big upgrades.
Not enough.
No, it's not. She got Jagged Edge, which helps with Enigma, but it does not by any means fix that matchup. No. They can still block 9 to 12 on a lot of your swings, and you're left there with nothing to do. And if you tech enough to beat Enigma, you lose to Viscerai and Zen even harder.
I don't know. And as far as Enigma is concerned, I think she's still like top of A tier. She's still very strong. I think flexors help her a lot. All the prevent stuff helps her a lot. I know a lot of people think her Zen matchup is favored now, which is silly.
I
want to put her in S, but we don't have data to prove that.
I mean, to be fair, we may as well turn S tier into LL tier at this point.
I think that the only thing that would that's stopping her from being S tier is like if Flick Knife stuff is like too good into her, and I don't know that personally.
I have no idea. Yeah.
I would back you up in putting her in S. I think there's so many good Enigma pilots at this point. and most of them have been playing the deck since its conception. That like even in Memphis, we saw a lot of Enigmas do really well, and their practice for this aggro matchup, they know how to flip between the metas. I just think she's a very flexible deck and really good.
So would we be okay with bumping Zen down to A tier?
No.
I think
Like-
Zen
like
is
top?
around the same level as Enigma. If we have Enigma in S, I would keep Zen in S. But like personally, I would have them both like top of A. I think Viscerai is better than both. But like that's semantics. Who cares?
Viscerai
Yeah.
is better than both, but like I've not yet been shown enough that Zen is not an S tier hero, and
Yeah, I don't think one bad weekend is like gonna be like, oh, Zen is unplayable now. He converted poorly in Memphis. Like, no, he's still good.
Yeah.
We'll
show me
also have to see how
one
he
more
does
week
this
of this,
weekend.
then I'll bump him down.
Yeah. Well, one more week of this and he might just LL.
Not if he's not winning anything.
So
We'll
true.
see.
Are you
Yeah,
saying something, Andrew?
Zen states go crazy on anything though. Like all it takes is one Zen getting lucky and drawing wax on wax off into all the decks that are theoretically better than him, and he still wins the matchup, right? So it's like
That's the exact point I was going to make. Is I think
Yeah.
Zen is hanging on by the power of Zen states. The fact that you get the free one, like you turn off Flick, you turn off the resources from Bloodstain, you turn off mask triggers, like it's really good. But as Zach said, you have to see it, and you only get the one free one. We'll see.
Yep.
I think without that, Zen is not in a good spot.
I think Ninja as a class is hanging on by Zen State, but
Yep.
Fang.
So the next Red
or
Ninja,
Fang, Fi.
Mr. Fi.
in like theoretically, I think he should be good. I just haven't seen it yet. I don't know.
Yeah.
Nobody I know plays him, but I hear good things.
Like most people are probably just playing the Syndra over Fi, but you know Fi has just got a like I refuse to believe them B tier
See-
because he just got a ton of tools.
Fi is one where I'm kind of the opposite of Syndra, where like Syndra, I'm like, yeah, that's a like mid bottom A tier aggro deck. It's like good. It's probably better than half of the other ones, but worse than half of the other ones. Fi, I'm like, yeah, that sounds like where Fi should be, but I haven't seen it yet, so I guess he's not. I don't know.
Yeah. Like everyone's just on the Syndra. They're on the hot waifu, right?
As you said, people are just bored of Fi. I mean, he's stuck around for since the beginning of Uprising, and that was now what 2 years ago, 3 years ago.
It's more than 2, I think. Like 2 years and a few months, maybe something like that.
I was really hoping that all of these new Ninja and Draconic sets would see him just LL out. Just so
I
that we
would not be surprised if he LL'd
Yeah.
this season. I
wouldn't
he's
either.
very close.
Doesn't
Show
he
us
need,
the
like,
list, please.
250 points or something.
We
Yeah,
should
something
make our
like
own
that.
Fi list and win every single one of our RTN seasons just so people start playing him.
Yeah.
Just so we can get him out.
I don't
Just
know. I
control
think
that.
that like the boots help him. You can attack with your sword twice in a turn. It's cute.
I don't think Fi's doing anything unfair. That's his issue.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's just like the Phoenix Flame stuff is just like the Flick stuff, but worse. So I don't know.
He'll be good and worth considering once both this and Zen leave.
Yeah,
Be
for
a
me,
big
he's
deal.
somewhere between the dashes. I don't know if
Yeah.
that puts him in B or A. It would be very low B or reasonably high C.
Here's what I'll say. If Victor comes back into the meta,
Oh,
then
I'm putting
maybe we
Victor
see
pretty high.
then maybe Syndra falls down a bit, and Fi has the unique niche of I'm good into Guardians trying to fatigue me because I Phoenix Flame cycle.
You mean this one, right? You mean Aurora? Are you talking about Aurora?
No, I'm talking about Fi.
No, but
like
the words
Aurora
you're saying
also does that better.
The words you're saying say
Yes,
Aurora though.
yes. Yeah, no, I'm not saying that he'd be the best at
They
it.
also
I'm saying
say
like
Fang.
he has that niche. Like he would be doing the same thing he was doing into Oldham when he was doing that, right?
Yeah,
so
but Aurora does
he
it
has
better.
niches. I just don't think they're like niches that need to be explored.
Well,
you know.
Let's just go ahead and talk about Victor now. Just pull him up. Like,
Yeah, sure.
why not? Like, where do we
Top of B.
Top of
I
B.
would say top of B.
That's a
I
nice
think he
take.
is better than Azalea, but I haven't seen like actual results to prove it.
I think this man is a sleeper.
I
and
think
if
the
Yu was
only
not in the
thing that
format-
is like super gating him from popping off is Viserai and Enigma. Guess who's probably LLing in this RTN season? Viserai and Enigma.
And
Well,
and they
Until
did
they
get an
until they
expansion
go, I
slot.
don't think you can really justify bringing him because you get like dunked on so hard by them. But like, I mean, I guess the Enigma matchup is like theoretically winnable for victors now because they're playing all the go again stuff. But like,
Yeah.
Viserai
the
is
Viserai matchup
theoretically
is like,
winnable too, in the same way that every bad Viserai
yeah,
matchup is winnable.
well,
They lose
yeah,
10%
but it's
of their
not
games.
really right. It's not actually. Like, so I don't know. Like once they're gone, I think you would be like in a. I think it would be reasonable to bring him to basically anything once those are gone.
I think
And
he's
if they aren't
already
in your
reasonable.
area, I think he's good. Yeah, I mean
think-
he's still like a fine pick.
I
like,
think if there's like only one or two Enigmas in your play area and Viserai is either being like hated out very harshly by the meta or again just don't show up, I think you bring Victor and just hope to dodge. Like if you just say like, hey, we're playing a 5-round RTN and there's like, I don't know, 24 people here, there's 4 Viserais and 2 Enigmas, and you're like, okay, odds on I'm gonna hit one of them and then I just hope I dodge them in top 8 and win. That's a very reasonable call if you can't play any deck, right?
Yeah. And speaking of dodging, let's talk about one of the things he needs to dodge, which is new.
I disagree. I mean, like, New's like he needs to dodge New, but like not really. Where is New?
he doesn't need to dodge new as much as any of the other Guardians do, but
Yeah.
it's still not great for him.
It's like
Yeah.
30, 35, isn't it? Like somewhere around.
Yeah,
there?
you can take her head off sometimes for sure.
Every Guardian player that I talk to just says they stopped playing Victor because new is a card. Now I think that they've gotten access to new like blue block 3 that they don't suffer and die over if new gets them now. But still, like it hurts the power level of Victor a lot to not be able to run a blue block 3 with 6 power, 7 power because new is a hero.
You
Or-
don't. You just do that, and then
Yeah, you
when you
just
play
play them
against
anyway.
her, yeah,
Like the only blue that you're like probably never playing into new is like Terra's Under. Otherwise, it's like whatever. You're not gonna side them out. Just play the good cards and hope that they don't activate new. They don't activate new that often, right? Like
yeah.
it's fine.
You just play for like a 6, 7 turn game.
Yeah, you just need to take their head off. If
Great.
it goes long, you'll lose. But like I don't know. I think Victor has much bigger problems than new. But yeah, and new is in herself probably an A tier deck. I think that she's the best assassin until Viserai leaves, and then I think she's probably the second best one.
I think New might be better to play because she's more solved, but if you have a good Mario deck versus a good New deck, I like Mario a lot more.
I think that Mario's better in the mirror for sure.
Yeah, I played Assassin all of 2024, and I've pivoted off of Assassin strictly because I got tired of the Blade matchup, and I just hated going up against Viserai.
Well, if we're talking about who's better into Viserai, shouldn't it be Mario because he just takes his head off?
No,
Unless
I
you're
think
trying
No.
to say that you just fatigue with New consistently.
I think that new either if you're playing the CYB thing, you're trying to fatigue, or you're just disrupting better.
Yeah,
I think
like
CYB
that's the
is
thing.
bad in this meta.
I also think CYB is bad in this meta, but I'm just saying
Yeah.
if you're somebody who's on it, I think that like new is still probably the best deck
See-
that's doing it.
yeah. I would say that if you were like if I was to play an Assassin right now, that's just my take, and maybe that's just because I'm biased because I played her all last year. But I do think that she does have a little bit more of that solve factor where you can just pick her up and play her, and she got a couple of new tools, nothing crazy, but enough like just why break something or why fix something when it's not broken? Like she's got great options.
And I think that like it's also interesting with new. Like some people are experimenting with Mark new, and I don't know if that's going to wind up being good or not. Like I don't think that it's better than what she was doing before, but maybe it is. Maybe that becomes a breakout deck. We'll see.
Yeah, there's still that potential too.
It won't.
Yeah,
maybe-
that's
maybe
where
I'll
I'm
put
at
some
Hunter,
money
but
down
who
on-
knows? You know, like
You know what
I will-
happened? All of the new players discovered a Mark new build, and that's why Glaive is over $70 now.
Yeah, that's definitely it.
Yeah, that's 100% it.
Is Glaive actually
it's just people
$70?
buying out the
Don't answer
essential expansion slot card because is what it is.
Yeah, I'm definitely.
Every
I
every
can
time
definitely
like
afford to
the
play
expansion
Fab.
slot card is the like essential one, it's gonna be bonkers expensive. That's why it's kind of sad it's in there. But I get it for draft. That's off topic.
Well, and it was
You
short
know.
printed too.
Yeah, I was also short printed because it's a
Nice.
weapon.
Nice. Okay.
But anyway,
So
my
Fang-
rationale for
well,
Go ahead and finish. We'll finish up new. Go ahead
yeah.
and.
So my rationale here is like I think Viscerais who come prepared for Assassin are going to beat New a lot harder than they beat Arachne unless she's running CYB, and if she's running CYB, I think it's a really bad time to be running CYB with all of the stuff around her. So I don't think she's that good. I think she's like significantly worse than Marionette if they both run like similarly skilled pilots and decks. The only question is like, well, the differentiating factor is that you're not going to see that many good Mario lists yet.
Yes.
But I think the people who actually know what they're doing and show up with a good Mario list are going to be a lot better positioned than New.
yeah, that's maybe true. While we're on the topic of Assassin, actually, can we just pivot to Azuri just to get it out of the way?
Do it.
I think Azuri is solidly in the middle of B. I think that she is good. I think that the Mark stuff helped her a lot. I think that like the stealth daggers help her a lot. I think she's probably the best assassin into purely aggro, if that's what your local meta is. Like that's why she won Worlds, right? It was just because she was better at New in that exact niche. If that's what you're dealing with, play her. Otherwise, I think you have better options.
I think
Solid
she's good, yeah.
She's got those cool new boots. You do cute things. Best in slot. Here you go again. Fang.
CNC with Go again? I mean, that sounds insane. You know.
So we'll just move on to Fang now. If we have anyone, unless anyone has anything to say about Udry, disagreement, any of that.
No.
You want to start Hunter?
No, you go.
Yeah, you two tested Fang a lot.
I don't know. Like I somewhere top of B, bottom of A for me. I think that he has like some fundamental issues that I don't know if can be solved with the current card pool. But he's like totally fine. I would say that he's like 45% into basically everything outside of arcane matchups, which kind of hose you. He's good. If you're a warrior player, I think he's the best one. You can race a lot of things, but I don't know, sometimes you break and sometimes you just lose because of it.
Yeah, I mean, you do a little bit of bricking. I don't know. I think he's actually favored into every single deck on this list above him, except for Viserai.
I don't think he's favored into Mario.
Except, well, maybe not Mario. Mario's close. A lot of them are close. Instead of 45,
yes,
I think
that's why I said it's like.
I think he's 51, but the reason I put him so low is because the like if you're trying to win an event or if you're trying to do well at an event, you want percentage points either to be very in your favored in the meta that you see or to be augmented harshly by your player's skill. Fang does not reward player skill very well. Once you know the basic lines and so long as you know how to block and like the only side of skill in the matchup is knowing how to play against your opponent's deck. Playing your own deck is not skill intensive pretty much at all with Fang. You just throw numbers at them and that's it. It takes like I don't know 4 games of playing him to reach close to peak level, and that peak level still has you losing 25% of your games to you bricking. And to be fair, you do win 30% of your games to you just high rolling. But the rest of those games in the middle, like if you're losing 1 in 4 games, you're not topping events very consistently. Especially not when you have Viscerai, which is like a 2% matchup or something silly.
I don't think that one's even remotely the worst of the arcane. Well, I think that like I went 50-50 into Viscerai on the weekend. I almost managed to beat Nathan Crawford and my second game against Vis. Like I think that the race like is very doable. I think that like the bigger problems are actually like the niche arcane matchups. Like I think all the wizards have Scour, which hoses you. Acilio has like Blast to Oblivion, which hoses you. Kano takes your head off. Vincent, you can't interact with her disruption at all. So it's like all those arcane matchups are bad. Jarl is weird. Sometimes you can just kill him before he gets online, but if he ever does, you can't play the game.
Jarl is a terrible deck. So
yeah, but that
like,
deck is also
the only
not
reason you
real, but,
can
you
win
know.
that matchup is because it is terrible.
Yes, true.
Um,
But yeah, I don't know. Like, I would agree with you for the most part. Like, I think Fang is favored into Aurora if she doesn't draw exactly CLV plus the D-React. I think Fang is favored into New very handedly.
favored into Ira,
you're
very favored into Syndra. I think it's close
Yes,
into
you're
Mario.
very favored into Syndra. Into Ira, it's kind of awkward because she can play around your boots a lot better than Syndra can, but I still think you, like, at the very least, even. Mario is very hard, but I think, like...
I think you're traumatized.
I don't know. I'm also inexperienced in the matchup, so we'll see.
I think you're traumatized and you've always been bad at playing against assassins.
This is also fair.
Enigma's favored.
I don't know. Like,
Zen is close to 50-50. Like,
I don't know. Like, I'm just saying, like, talking to the Mario Cabal at Memphis, they're like, we're 80% into Fang and testing. And playing against them, I played against the same deck twice, and I got rolled both times. So,
yeah,
like,
because they drew 2 copies of their M on turn 2 both games and hit you for 15 and drew 2 cards on both games.
I mean, sure, but like I'm just saying, like I will give them the benefit of the doubt because they're the people who know the deck, and so
And
if they say it's 80%, I'll say it's probably exaggerated.
My
Maybe
caveat
it's like
to that
60,
is
you know?
they don't know Fang. We're the people who actually know Fang, at least in my opinion.
You know, fair.
So like, you can laugh,
So,
but like
you people who know Fang, right?
Like
You're saying he has all these great matchups, so why is he like just like sum it up a little bit? Why
like
is he
I
in the
said,
middle of
because
So,
you lose
over the course of a
25% of
tournament.
your games with no
Yeah.
player control whatsoever. So even if you're favored on average across the meta, we're not playing a 1,000 round tournament where whoever has the highest win rate after 1,000 games is crowned champion. We're playing a tournament with 5-6 rounds, and if you lose 1 or 2 of those unavoidably to your own deck crapping itself, it doesn't matter how many free wins you got somewhere else. Fang is a fairly skill agnostic deck, so you don't want to play him if you think you're a good player in the room.
That makes complete sense. Inconsistent, right? Is like the word you would use. It's just he can't pull off those consistent wins. We put him in that B tier because of that.
Rather than
I think-
inconsistent, it's just uncontrollable. Like Viscera
Yeah.
is an inconsistent deck, but you can play in a way that lets skill take some degree of precedence there.
The only real skill thing in Fang is just like specifically into disruptive matchups, not losing your fealty in some stupid way.
You
Like
have to know how to block.
Yes, and if you can do that, the deck pretty much pilots itself. So yeah, I agree. I think that like if you're going to a tournament and you know the field, and the field is all the things above Fang, bring Fang. If you're going to a tournament and the field is very open and you're not sure or you're new to the area, I wouldn't bring him.
I wouldn't bring him if you think you're a good player.
Yeah.
I can't wait for us to get roasted by the Fang players in the comments.
Dude,
That's
I
all
don't
I'm
know.
gonna
Like,
say.
I don't know if I would necessarily say don't bring him if you're a good player. Like, I think that's going a little. I think that's going a little bit too far. But like,
if you think you're like the top 3 players in the room, you would be absolutely out of your mind to bring a deck like Fang.
I agree with that. I think that like Fang, if you want to give yourself a ton of opportunities to skill diff, I think that Fang does not really do that. But I do think that Fang is very good at consistently beating people worse than you because it's a warrior, and that's kind of what warriors do. They just math people.
I
right?
disagree.
So I don't know.
It's like they have to be a lot worse than you, and every other warrior is better at doing that than him. Let's move
Florian.
on.
Yeah.
Florian, yeah.
Florian is doing what Fang is doing
real
worse,
quick,
in my opinion.
Before we talk about Florian, once we're done talking about Florian, I want to rapid fire. So let's go ahead and talk about Florian and then rapid fire.
Yeah, we'll
Hero.
Sure. Yeah, no, Florian to me is Fang, but worse. Like, you're a deck that is trying to stack up this resource, and once you have this resource online, you're outmathing everybody, because you're just so efficient, and it just takes you 5 times as long in Florian as it does in Fang, and it's like, I don't know. He's not good.
I
I
disagree
love him,
with
but he's bad.
description harshly, but I do agree with the idea that, like, he is worse than Fang, but, like, I don't agree with the comparison. I feel like Florian's an exceedingly consistent deck who's just too slow at doing what he's consistent at doing right now.
This is true. Like, Florian doesn't lose to himself like Fang does, but he's doing the same idea of Fang of, like, get my thing together, go off, just way slower. And the payoff, I would argue, isn't even as good. Most of the time, like, I don't know. I've played a ton of both. I just don't think he's there. He needs help. Or he needs things to rotate. His Viscerai problem is way worse than Fang's, in my opinion. It's, like, unwinnable. Fang at least can pretend to race. I think your Enigma matchup is also abysmal. Like, you can put in all these terrible sideboard cards that make all your other matchups worse to make Enigma borderline playable, and it's just not worth it. Aurora is even sometimes kind of hard for you, but I guess the prevention effects help there. I don't know. He just has so many holes.
Why would you play
in his
him
matchup
over
card.
Victor?
You wouldn't,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
Anyone
I
else
don't
have
think-
anything else to add then?
Andrew, you played Florian for a little bit. What's your take?
I actually am in kind of agreement with them both. I think he's a very good hero, but not right now. I think he needs like a card or two, and I think Viscerai still being S tier and Enigma, as we have her in S tier currently, is just too hard to overcome.
I
Once
agree.
that rotates, I'd like to come back to him, but I think right now he's good where he's at.
Yeah, very powerful deck, just not now. I'm
Yeah.
moving Phi down. We're getting fat in B tier.
That's,
Um,
I think that's fair.
all right, you said
Snap
rapid
judgment,
fire the crap
So
stuff, right?
I'll name off the hero, and then we'll just put him into the not relevant. And with that, then voice an opinion. So starting with Olympia, we can put him in not relevant.
I
Yeah.
agree.
Max is not relevant.
Yeah.
I think Max is.
I think that banning High Octane kind of gutted that deck completely, and it doesn't have anything to do anymore.
I think Max
Yep.
is C tier, but I don't care to argue it.
Yep. Tekla not relevant.
It's not relevant.
Bolton, would we put him
6-2
at
to the
bottom?
Battle Hardened in Canada, though.
Good for him, man. I wish he was good. I like him. Like,
Yes.
but he's not. He's bad.
I think Bolton's not relevant as well.
Bolton.
I'm gonna argue on that.
I would argue
we'll
that
move
one
on
too,
for
yeah.
now.
Okay, we'll move on to the next one. I would have said that Reinar is not
He's
relevant.
not relevant.
before.
Don't get psyoped.
Okay.
He's not.
All right.
Because
But-
Eugene is just a beast.
You
It's
can- you
not
can put him
Reinar,
at
it's
bottom
him.
of C
Like,
tier
he's
just
not
because of
relevant,
Eugene.
I promise.
Put him in the Eugene tier, baby. Come on,
Okay.
Eugene tier.
Can we have that as a tier? I would
No.
love that.
No, it's gonna screw up the
Eugene
recording.
tier.
It's gonna screw
That
up
was
the
the hottest
recording if I have to add
ever.
another tier. That's why I had to establish it.
Also, side note, that guy is super awesome.
Oh
Like,
yeah, no,
he's
super
so
nice
cool.
guy, and he's a
Such a great
beast at
guy.
Reinar. But no one else is gonna get success with him. I'm sorry, even if you think that Reinar's your boy, I promise you he's not. I'm sorry, it's just like that.
he's Eugene's
alright?
boy.
He's Eugene's boy. He's a one-man guy. All right.
Jarl, do we all agree that he's not relevant?
Ooh,
Yes, I agree. He's not relevant. Like, people will try and play him. You might see some. He's not good.
I think Jarl is the worst deck in the game and is
Well-
carried only by the fact that
Dang.
no one is playing around Frostbite because of how terrible he is.
Also,
so true.
just
That's
a
actually the
point of
hot
order
greatest
so that
take,
people
actually.
are aware. Like, while we were in Memphis, like, some of us got to talking to like the group that brought Jarl, like
Michael Hamilton.
yeah, Michael Hamilton, all those guys. And basically they were all coming for the limited calling and came a day early and were like, we'll bring Jarl as a joke. And then Hamilton day 2 and none of the other ones did. So even they think the deck is a joke, guys. Like, it's not good. Please don't get psyoped by him day 2ing. It's not good.
I
Yeah.
do legitimately think that Jarl is the worst deck in the game. I think he's worse than Bravo. I think he is worse than Betsy. I think maybe you can have an argument between him and Huntsman, but I legitimately think the only redeeming quality of any of the cards in his deck is the fact that it makes certain decks physically unable to play with Frostbite.
Mm-hmm.
And if he was any relevant meta presence, he would just be awful.
Yeah.
Moving on, I don't think there's any other heroes here that are in the not relevant tier. Maybe
You don't think
Acilio.
Leviah?
So we'll move up to the who we think are in C tiers, because I don't think Acilio is irrelevant. I think that he has enough explosive power.
Yeah,
So
I think Acilio is like good when he goes off and is just
Mhm.
too inconsistent. Like,
He's like
it's
top of
probably
C
like a
tier.
C. Like, it's
Yeah.
fine.
I think
Like, if you're an Acilio specialist, you're a silly little boy, then take him. It's fine.
Let's do Wizards then. Acilio,
Yeah,
I'm
sure.
happy with here.
I think Verdance is in pretty much the same spot. I mean, I know she did good on the weekend, but she's a deck like kind of like how you were describing Fang, where it's like her turns kind of play themselves, in my opinion. You don't have a lot of room to skill diff people. You can outmath them. You can just like deterministically win sometimes, deterministically lose sometimes, and that's fine.
I
deck is
would
good.
argue that this deck is more like a toned down version of Pitch Deck, Like watching John play on the weekend, it was all
It's
those
pretty
games he was left.
inevitable.
It is
Yeah.
very inevitable, yes.
But like getting to that point, I think takes a lot of reps. I think she is C tier. I just think like that is a deck that is gonna reward a very loyal pilot rather
agree.
than
I think
doing
the
something you
exact
pick up.
opposite of what Zach was saying. I think it's a very skill-intensive deck.
I think that like
where
well,
you
the
lose
skill isn't.
matchups because your deck can't play them, not
It's
because the deck craps itself.
Verdant's Armory deck when to fix this hero? Hello?
I don't think the hero needs fixing, to be
I
clear.
agree.
I think the hero's
I
fine.
think the second the aggro leaves the meta, she's going to
Yeah.
be one of the worst
Yeah.
heroes ever printed. It's going to be
Yeah, no,
infuriating.
I agree. I think like once the aggro tones down a bit and she can just survive it, like she's a very problematic hero. But I guess maybe I just like said my thoughts in a way that like didn't make sense. But like I think I'm in agreement with you guys that like she is good and just loses to being too slow sometimes. But like I think that the skill in the deck is knowing how to pitch stack, which I don't think is like that's a skill that's very transferable, is what I mean. Like, so if you're somebody who's good at pitch stacking, I think you don't have like you're not going to struggle to pick up Verdance. I think you can pick it up very quickly.
Sure.
But if you don't have that skill, then yes, she's hard.
Okay, I can get behind that logic. Yeah.
Kano.
Kano goes into Kano tier.
He does.
Kano's only good.
He
if
is
there is
nobody
no
says
simultaneously
Kano
in S. He's in S and not relevant at the same time. Did you bring
Yeah.
A, B, and Spell Void? Cool, he scrubbed.
All
Did
right,
you not?
he's
Cool,
above
he
5
won.
because
I
I
don't know.
think there's a bigger
Like-
reason to play him than any other C tier hero, but you can't put him in high tiers
Nope.
because you have no idea what the event's going to look like.
Y'all played Magic, right? Like this is just Dredge. This
It's
is
Dredge,
Dredge.
yes. It's Dredge. Did you bring your ley lines? Let's go.
Like my local Kano player just tells us always, bring your AB, dedicate your 5 slots. Because
If
there's gonna
only
be a
5
couple of
slots
Kanos
actually
going in.
helped
It's
against
all-
Kano.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, the Kano Wizards, Acilio less so, but like Verdance and Kano, I think are very problematically designed characters. But I'm a warrior player, and I have no physical way to beat these characters at all in my entire card pool unless I dedicated 13 sideboard slots to them. So I'm bitter. Brutes.
Yeah, moving on to Brute. KO, yeah.
he's
C
just
tier makes
so
sense.
much slower.
He's a math
Bro,
brute.
can you imagine a year ago if we told people KO would be like DC tier? Like,
Man,
how
don't-
far
they would
we've
never
come in a
believe you.
year.
I don't
Y'all thought
actually
he was gonna
agree.
LL.
I think KO's like here, but like
I think in terms of power level, sure, he's like around probably like Dio
He
Slippy, but it's just like I don't know why you would play him when all these other aggro decks exist in the format and are just
true.
like fundamentally faster and harder to interact with. Like, I don't know.
Mhm.
well, luckily this is a power tier list and not a why
Yep.
you would play it tier list. Okay.
This is true. Yep.
And we don't really have to talk too much about Levia. She lost Art of War, lost a bunch of tools.
I still think
Now
she's
she's-
good, but
I still think she's fine. I don't think she's all that much worse than KO, if even worse. Honestly, she might be better. I don't know. No one's playing
But
either right now.
She
It's hard to say.
loses to herself. That's the biggest thing.
Yes,
Is like
Yeah.
she does.
Katsu's a funny one, man. Katsu's so funny.
I
think
could
that
put
he
Katsu
is-
like up here.
I would.
Yeah.
I was gonna say I would argue that he's like right below Slippy. Like I think that he's.
I think he's
agree with that.
actually quite strong.
I
I
think he's just I could put him like here personally. I
I
could
think he's.
put him
I
higher
don't know if I
too.
quite go that far, but like I think he's actually quite strong. Just no one is playing him. Like the other aggro decks are easier and more consistent, but like he can still go off with the best of them.
I think he's
Yes.
better than Florian.
I kind of feel like
Maybe.
Katsu's in the same boat that Dory is. Like, if you have a local Katsu, your players know how to play against him. If you haven't seen a Katsu in a while, this is a skill check matchup.
I disagree. I think, like, I agree that you do auto lose to Katsu if you don't know how to play the matchup, but unlike Dory, I think there's a lot more, like, the way your deck lines up into the meta is a lot more favorable than Dory. Because Dory in this
I
meta
agree with
has to
that.
play into, like, the broken version of Viscerai. She has to play into Enigma, and she has to play into, and we're talking about Dawnblade, and she has to play into all the jank running around in the meta, even if she's like good into the ninjas, which I'm not even convinced Dawnblade's good into Zen because he's got a fridge. But Dawnblade Dory like beats all of A tier, and then like loses to all of S tier and is okay / terrible into B tier. Katsu like can have game or like he's okay into S tier, I think. Like I think he probably loses to Viscerai unless he gets wax on wax off. But like Katsu I think does well into A and B tier.
No, I agree, and I mean he gets to
Yeah.
play all the like dagger
Same for
shenanigans
Ace
people are
3.
playing elsewhere too. Like
Yeah.
I think the deck is like fundamentally very strong.
He in a way, like we said, he feels like Dory. You could probably make an argument he feels a bit like Uzuri, right? Where there's like a specific world where he works really well, but it's like, why would you play Katsu when you have
Because he's
I
fun.
to do the rest of everything else?
I think he's like that's my big thing. Right? I think
Yeah.
Katsu's so fun, dude. I really
Yeah.
want him to be good.
I think you lose to
I-
Azalea, Victor, Assassins, and Viscerai. Otherwise, I think you have game into everything else.
Yes, like you can go off with the best of them up there, and you get to do all the flick knives, mask momentum shenanigans, all the other decks are doing too. Like
It's
you're
way scarier too, I think,
yes,
than Katsu.
for sure.
Like I think legitimately Mask of Momentum shenanigans in Katsu is scarier than any other deck. It's just less consistent than Syndra.
Yeah.
I
Yes.
genuinely think Katsu is like better than Ira. I think these two would swap for me. I'm not going to do that on this tier list, but I do genuinely think Ira is just doing what Katsu is doing, but worse.
That could be. I mean,
So-
people
so,
definitely
like-
haven't explored
And that's
Katsu
why
enough.
we put him in the middle of B there, because Andrew feels like he's more of like an Adori tier, whereas Hunter feels like he's more in like the Ira should be, and that's kind of like a good middle ground, right? Right, we could just say, hey, like this guy's got game. Don't show up and think that you're just gonna run all over him because somebody
Don't
could
think
easily
you're
just do
faster
that.
than Katsu
Yeah.
in an aggro mirror.
No, you
Don't
gotta,
think that way. You're not gonna outrace him, or you
Yeah.
might,
Also-
but it'll be close. You know.
you gotta
somebody-
identify what he's doing.
If somebody's bringing Katsu, as with any of these lower tier heroes, respect that player. Do not sit down and
I
just
would be
assume you're
more
gonna win.
afraid of Katsu than anything on this list except for maybe Kano or Dio.
Yeah, Kano Dio makes
Like,
sense
those are the-
to be afraid of.
Yeah, those are the only other heroes where if someone brought it, I'd be like, okay, they know something's up.
So speaking of
Bad players bring
terrifying-
Katsu too, though. So like that's
Yeah.
where he
I mean, he's
gets
just
third
fun.
place.
Like he's
Yeah.
fun and he's existed forever.
Let's move forward to the Dusk Till Dawn heroes.
You know, you want to touch on Bolton quickly here? Let's
Sure.
round off
Let's
Warriors.
go ahead and knock out the Warriors, and then
All
we'll
right,
move on to the last
you
three.
can start on Bolton Hunter.
People are smoking crack when they say that Bolton's Warrior matchup got worse, and it was never relevant that Bolton's Warrior matchup was bad. It always was. It was always one of, if not his worst matchup. And it got better. So screw you. All of the new heroes introduced into the meta, like we got Syndra, Fang, and Mario. Mario's probably a bad matchup. Syndra's probably, depending on your build, but it should be close. Maybe Bolton favored. I don't know. That one requires a lot of testing that I am not putting in. And Fang is a nothing sandwich that you probably lose, but you lose because it's a warrior, not because the matchup's fundamentally bad, just because they don't play attacks for your swords to be irrelevant. Otherwise, Bolton's a competent aggro deck of Phi speed. Like the Bolton aggro deck is of Phi power level and speed, with a combo OTK plan that will beat like a third of the game.
That makes sense.
But Hunter,
Good take.
there's Kabuto in the game.
Yeah, thank goodness. Now you can win your warrior mirrors. I don't.
But I can't combo OTK
Oh,
them.
God.
What do
So-
I do? No, like I agree. I think the
From-
deck is good. I think it got better. I think people are coping out of their minds with the
From
Kabuto
one
stuff.
warrior player to a Bolton. Like, I don't play Bolton. I do play against Bolton as warrior, though. If you play combo against warrior, you will die before you combo, or you will fatigue yourself while comboing. You need very specific builds to make that not happen, and those builds aren't good into the meta. So you just play aggro into warrior, and if you're playing aggro into warrior, their Kabuto doesn't do anything to the point where you might not even need to play it as the other warrior player. You probably still will. It's probably still blocks 5. Your Kabuto probably blocks like 15. Something silly. You think you're playing against a Kasai and they blood on their hands and you just Kabuto. You win. You're playing against a Fang and they keep a 4-card hand. You Kabuto. You win. Like, the only matchup where it's like close is like Dawnblade, but like that matchup was already horrendous for Bolton. So who cares? I'm putting Bolton here. I think he's slower than KO. I think he's got better combo potential than Dio. I might be wrong. I don't know what like the cracked Dios are looking like, but
I would
haven't
put
played
him
much
like
Bolton,
above Levia personally,
Okay.
but like I agree with you. I think he's like a fundamentally fine deck. I don't think like
He's not dead.
he's definitely not dead.
he's
I think
definitely
that
not dead.
yeah.
I
think
have
that
played a
that's
lot of Bolton in my lifetime. I do not think he is in B tier. I would agree with Zach's assessment that he's just Levio.
Levia.
Kasai.
it's
Oof.
about the same spot, maybe
Yeah.
a little higher. Like she's definitely I think she's a
lot
better
higher.
deck than Bolton, for sure. I don't think she's good into the current meta, but like she's
No.
a fundamentally strong
She
deck.
has the exact same meta problem as Florian, except she's fundamentally less powerful. So like maybe it's worse than Slippy. I think if the world ever
Right.
comes to a point where math is relevant again, I think she's better than KO.
Yes.
I would agree with that. Probably.
I think KO's a better deck than her, I guess, but I think in a world where either of them are relevant, I think Kasai is going to be more relevant in that world.
Yes. 100%.
Kasai is sad. She's such a sad hero. It's like
Mhm.
it's like you're playing Viserai, with the like needing to draw your combo card, but you need to draw that combo card after you've set up instead of just arsenaling it. And you need to hit your opponent, and you don't do 20 damage a turn for free, and you, etc., etc. You don't get disruption, you don't get 6 powers, you don't get anything.
I mean, that's just warrior period at this point, right?
Kasai
You
is
don't
one
get
card away
disruption.
from being relevant, and
Like-
it is a yellow card that can trip tutors a specialization.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Like yeah. That's if she could get something. That's why I think LSS is just feels like they're so afraid of making class a broken archetype. That's what it feels like a little bit. They're afraid of that with Guardian and Warrior, and they made Brute kind of broken for a little while there with KO, and we all thought he was going to get LL. Ninja's really the only one they're not to increase their level, but I think that's just the nature of red deck.
KO
Burns
is
or
the
whatever,
least
right?
powerful best deck in format we've ever seen.
100%, 100%. And that's the funny thing is like these Welcome to Wraith classes, I think they're just gonna keep them like a lower power level forever, just so that these original heroes don't LL.
Well, it's not even
I
that. It's just
disagree.
like it's just about the fact that they're not talented. Like I think that's really most of the problem. Is that like if you give these guys a talent, like their hero power is fundamentally strong, their card pool is just small.
A bit, yeah, but we also
but,
have
yeah.
Ira and Viserai and Mario, who technically doesn't have a talent, and then you have You have Azalea who doesn't like we have all
And
in these
Victor,
high
and
levels,
Izuri, and
right, with no
Katsu. I
talent. I
harshly
agree.
disagree.
I agree that the talents would make them stronger because they just simply have that bigger card pool.
To be clear,
Right.
if Katsu had bonds right now and Zen didn't, and they made it a Katsu spec like everyone thought, like was hoping
Yes.
they would or whatever, because they're coping, Katsu would be the best deck in the game.
100%.
It would.
think
I don't even
might
think
be
it'd be
worse
close.
than Viserai still, but
I don't think so. I don't even think it'd be close. I think that Katsu with bonds and the stagger stuff would be the best deck in the game by a country mile.
all right.
But
Anyway, we're off
Yeah, we'll
topic.
move
Dusk
forward,
Till Dawn heroes,
Yeah.
Prism. What do we got?
We left the 3 hardest heroes till last. I gotta be honest.
Did
Yes,
we?
I think Prism is in A.
Yeah.
I think I agree with you.
I think she is high B.
I think that she is doing what Azalea is doing fundamentally better in that she is beating all the aggro decks above her really hard.
So she's above Aurora.
Maybe.
She's
but
at the
like
very least bottom of A, at the very least.
But like
I
she,
agree with that.
you just send sevens. Like you
she
just
has
send
some
two
ability.
sevens, and
I think
like if they
Prism's
have
really
blockers,
well-
you can just, like
like-
it's
I think she's really well positioned. I just don't see any results with her.
she
She won a
literally
battle
won the
hard.
battle
Won
hard.
Battle Hard this
Oh, did she?
weekend.
Okay, I didn't watch
Yes.
the battle hard. All right, I'm fine. Prism can be an A.
Yes.
Moving on.
Prism
I gotta
is-
be honest.
I hate Aurora. She's going above Aurora.
Amen. Screw you, Aurora.
I gotta be honest. Prism's one of those decks that like I don't know how much it's the deck and how much it's the pilot.
It's weirdly like you start playing Prism and you're like, this deck is so easy. You're just sending sevens. Like this plays itself, and then like you get in the weeds and there's like all the hat tricks and like how to manage your brick hands because that can brick. I think that it's a much bigger deck building challenge than it is like a gameplay challenge, if that makes sense. I don't
Yeah.
know.
And also like yeah, to go with that point, each of your slots is so important that like I've heard so many different opinions from even just like good Prism players, but completely different builds and completely different thoughts about like wraths and reprimands and even the new card. Like it's just I don't think I've heard one Prism say the same thing.
Yeah.
All right, Prism
Lots of
good.
versatility with her.
Vincent.
Yes.
If Viserai is still in the game, play him.
Yes.
But I think Vincent is a fundamentally strong deck. It's just incredibly difficult.
It's very hard to build too. It's in that same like Prism category.
Well,
where
it's
like-
not even just like Prism, because Prism is like hard to build and has a few like really hard interactions you need to learn, but once you have them, it's good. Vincent is just hard to pilot, even if you're like the most experienced Vincent in the world. This deck just presents you with so many clunkers that you have to like somehow finagle your way through in
And-
order to win, and it's like
and
the
you're
deck is
fighting-
like I don't know, like it's one of those decks that I would never bring to a big event because like my head would start hurting too early in the event, you know? Like you have to think during every single like turn. Where there's a certain amount of when you're going to like a long tournament where you want to have like a bit of brain off moments, you know, so you can like conserve energy a little bit. Vincent doesn't let you have any of that. I don't know. It's a very strong deck, but I hearts go out to Vincent players, man. I could never.
She's got the Levia problem, where her own hero ability you're fighting against. Like half the time it's nice, and the other half
It's way worse for Vincent than it is for Levia. At least Levia isn't like
1000%.
gimping her own hand and like making it really hard for you to even like plan out your turns. I don't know, man. This deck is so hard. But that's not what we're asking, right? We're asking how good is it?
Right, and that's why I think that is part of it. Is that's why it's not as good, is because you're fighting against your own hero.
I will also say currently Vincent has a very good win rate into the new heroes in general. I mean, I would trust Talishar Data at this point. Not all the time, but like we're looking at a new meta, so there's going to be a lot of new people picking up decks. So I think this is, if you're going to use it, this is the time to use it.
Yeah, I was talking to Bryce, one of our specialists on our team that plays a lot of that, and the thing that he said he was not expecting was showing up to the event and everybody knowing how to block. He said every person he played into knew exactly how to block him. Expect your opponents to play really well, and that's an issue with Vincent, is she can blocked correctly, and then you're just like, oh well, I'll pass up, and then like Zach said, you end clunker, and then like you have just a bunch of non-attack actions, but now you have to get rid of it, and then your turn's just literally taken off.
It's okay, guys. Vincent is only one card away. She's only been one card away for every card she's gotten.
Cole is really good.
I don't
Yeah,
think
Cole
it's
is
true,
really
though.
good. I think the deck is actually good. I'm mostly
Yeah.
joking. I think that the deck is good if you're a skilled Vincent pilot. You are perfectly like reasonable to be bringing Vincent to things.
Yes.
I just think that like if you're somebody looking into Vincent, maybe wait till after RTN season because it will take you like the entirety of RTN season to learn this deck. Like,
Okay,
it's
so we
very
said a
hard.
lot of words. Do we agree with this placement?
Yes.
Yeah, I think she's better than everything below her. I would
Okay.
maybe put her bottom of A even, but like yeah, she doesn't have the results for it. I guess.
All right.
I would take her
Dio's
before
going to
all
the
those
Shadow
heroes
Realm.
already.
Riptide is
Alright.
our last hero, and he's definitely going somewhere in B.
Yeah, somewhere around
Riptide's
there. I
hard.
don't know. He's somebody who's really good into very specific things and very bad into the rest. Fundamentally, the deck is okay.
It's like when Pablo brought him. Like that was just an insane
Yeah.
Pablo choice. I don't think anyone else could have done that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I do not understand what makes this hero good. I don't feel qualified to actually speak on him every time I play into him, even when he's supposed to have unlosable matchups into stuff like Warriors. It feels very easy to win. So,
The Enigma matchup is weird. Like, I know some Riptides think it's unlosable, and I think some Enigmas think it's unlosable. It's weird.
It's the 100-100.
Yeah, it's the
Yep.
100-100, the classic. Your Viscerai matchup, I'm pretty sure, is abysmal. I can't imagine it not being.
Yep.
And then, like, I don't know, you're a deck that's supposed to get value from blocking, and the blocking is just not incentivized in this format. So it's like, it's kind of becoming incentivized though once decks leave because then you have all the flick stuff and you want to be blocking. So maybe he comes up there, but I don't know. As of right now, I don't think I would bring him to anything unless I really knew the meta. But like that doesn't mean the deck is weak. It just means it's not horribly well positioned, at least in my opinion.
Yep.
I would agree with that.
all right.
Any closing thoughts from anybody before we finish up?
Do we want to move anything around? Anyone have anything that looks egregious to them?
I say
Teclo S.
Yeah, let's
And
make it
that's-
egregious before we leave. Let's
And that's
go.
when the game
All right, now
dies
flip.
back.
Now just take everything and flip it upside down
Oh my gosh.
and make it the thumbnail. All right.
Upside down pyramid.
The dimmerite.
Well, thank you guys for tuning in and watching this video and seeing our thoughts. Like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you for watching. You have a good night, everybody.